Hey everybody, it's Courtney and I am here with another project for Trinity Stamps. Today I'll be using the stamp set Succulent Banner, and I'm going to be trying something a little bit different today. I'm so used to my Copics, I'm trying to break out of my comfort zone a little bit. So I am working on a piece of Bristol Smooth paper here, and this is cut down to 4¼ by 5½. I'm bringing out my Misty here because this is a fairly large image and I had a feeling I was going to have to, or at least want to, stamp this twice. So I just line this up on my cardstock here, and I will be using an anti-static tool because I will be doing some heat embossing. I'll be stamping this with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is a pigment ink, so it does stay wet for a little bit longer than the regular dye ink, so you can heat emboss with it. So once I had that stamped down twice, I will be using clear embossing powder, and I will go ahead and heat set this. You want to make sure that your heat tool is nice and warmed up before you actually take it to the paper. I find that the Bristol paper does warp quite a bit, but I usually use liquid glue to adhere it to my card panel, so I don't usually worry too much about it. Once that was all heat set, we'll move on to the coloring, and I'll be using the Arteza Real Brush pens today. I don't have the zigs, I'm still saving up for them, so I did purchase these, and I do like them. They take a little bit of practice, but so far I really do like working with them. So I have my water off to the side there, as well as a number 4 brush from the Silver Brush Company. And I'm using 3 different colors here for this largest succulent here in the middle. It's kind of a medium green, a lime green, and a yellow. I'll lay out my color, and then I'll go in with a damp paintbrush and just let those colors kind of blend on their own. I'm not adding all that much color here. My paintbrush is just basically damp. Now you can use a water brush here. I don't really like water brushes. I find that they either don't put out enough water or they put out way too much. So I prefer just to use my regular paintbrush. I am concentrating my shadows off there to the left, and also where these little pieces kind of bunch up on top of one another. And once you blend it out, you can't really tell too much, but I'm just so used to my Copics and adding my shadows that I kind of stuck to the same thing here. For this next succulent off to the side, it looks like kind of like branches with leaves, even though I know it's not. I'm going to be using 2 different greens, and these are more of a yellow, like a darker yellow green. I compare everything to Copic colors, so these would be like the YG90s. And I'm just laying out the 2 colors, and then again going in with my damp paintbrush and letting those blend out together. I don't necessarily fill in the entire area just because I know once I add my water, it'll all blend together anyway. Next, we'll move on to this succulent right there in the center. It kind of looks like a flower. And I'm only going to be putting down 1 color here. For this one, I'm going to be using the purple, and I'm just putting down the color where the little petals meet or gather in the center, or where one lies over another. Then bring in that damp paintbrush and just let that blend out to the tips so that the tips of the petals are a little bit lighter. It gives it a little bit of dimension even though you're just using 1 color. Doing the same thing on this little flowery succulent over here, only with a pink. Now for these little vines, I guess, that are hanging down, there's little tiny buds on them, and I'm just going in with the blue and basically just touching the tip of the pen to the paper. I'm not doing any kind of blending here. These are teeny tiny little areas, so I'm just laying out a little bit of the color. For the banner, I wanted this to appear white, but everything white does have shadows, so I'm using just the gray on either side of the banner and underneath that 1 little succulent that hangs down, and then again just going in with that damp paintbrush and blending that out. You won't notice too much of a shadow. It's a fairly light gray, but it does give you a little bit of dimension. I went ahead and put that aside to dry on its own. It only takes a couple of minutes. Then I will go in with my sentiments. This is also from the set. You'll have a ton of sentiments to mix and match here, and some of them are kind of curved so that they fit in that banner. You can see I didn't get a great impression there. My little L didn't fully stamp. Instead of trying to go over and line it up, I figured I'll fix that later. Again, stamping this with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, using the clear embossing powder, and then I'll go ahead and heat set that. You want to be careful here because you don't want to remelt the embossing powder that we had already laid down for the image itself. Next, I wanted to add a little bit of something to the background, so I took one of the black pens from the set and I just laid that on an acrylic block, picked that up with my wet paintbrush, and just did small little splatters all throughout the entire card panel. I did go ahead and put that aside to dry. Now, I didn't want to just lay this flat on a card panel. I wanted there to be a little bit of a border. And out of all the pattern paper that I own and I've collected over the years, I didn't have any black and white stripes, and I wanted black and white stripes. So I'm taking a piece of Nina Solar White here and a ruler. And this is a Copic Safe pen. This is the EK Success journaling pen. And I'm just laying out diagonal lines down the entire card panel. I'm not worried about going all the way across because you're only going to see a little bit of this. Next, I took my black Copic marker and I filled in every other stripe. So you want to be careful. You can definitely use your ruler to make sure that your lines are straight, but I knew only a little bit of this would be showing, so I wasn't too worried about it. Once that was all colored in, again, you're only going to see a little bit of that. I took my card panel just to make sure that I had enough colored in there. And I'm going to trim down this card panel a little bit on either side so that my image is still lined up, but that I had enough room for my black and white stripes to be showing. And for this little sentiment, this little L, I'm using a black gel pen, and this is a glaze pen by Jelly Roll, I believe it is, just to fill that in. That way you still have the dimension. The glaze pens give you a little bit of dimension so that it kind of matches the embossing. I adhered my panel here flat to an A2 size card base with my Tombow Mono Multi Glue. And for my main panel here, I will use a piece of Fun Foam. I have the kind that's adhesive on one side. And as long as you don't press it down too hard, you can see I didn't line it up right the first time. You can peel it right off. Don't press down hard until you know it's lined up perfectly. I use my Tombow Mono Multi Glue to adhere that to the bottom panel. And now this will take a few minutes to dry, so you either want to hold it down with your hand or put it under something heavy while it sets. And that is the card for today, guys. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.